Three, two, one, boom. And we are live. I am joined by the founder of DesignatedReport.com, Sean Alcide. How are you doing? How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. It's been a really, really good weekend, celebrating Mother's Day and all this other stuff, a lot of downtime and a lot of just reflecting about some positivity with all that's going on, in the world the last year and a half or so. So I'm doing good, man. I'm in a good space right now. I can't complain. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. The last time you and I spoke, I was looking back at it was September. So that was kind of like obviously the heart of the pandemic and everything happening. And we're like, man, what is going on? And so I was able to pick your brain there. You've done so much great work before then, now. Kind of take me through that. What has that been like for you as far as your website, your material, your content? Has the pandemic affected that in a positive way? Not that the pandemic was a good thing, but were you able to kind of adapt and find some strengths off that?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question because I was just talking to a buddy of mine who were catching up on Saturday about just how the pandemic has impacted me outside of personal things, but like on a business standpoint and being a content creator, and it's really amazing because the pandemic it kind of like it helped in a way, right? In the way that it slowed me down. Regularly, I'm a teacher as well. I teach 5 days out the week. I commute to work to teach. Now it's a 50-minute commute because I just moved, but before it was like a half-hour commute. So I'm getting home 5:30, and I'm leaving the house 6 o'clock, 5:45 in the morning. So the pandemic, when it happened last year, that was the first time that it hit, and we were just still trying to adjust to what the school year was going to look like. So we toned it down as far as like the hours that we taught. And again, that in itself gave me more time to focus on designated report. So it gave me a lot of space to do a lot of the groundwork that I couldn't do between like a 7 to a 5:30 on a regular average day. And I was able to build a lot of connections like that. A lot came from that. But the part that it hurt, Max, and it kills me to this day, we're still trying to like get that ball rolling again. We were getting credentialed as a company to cover so many sporting events, and it just I'm reaching out, I'm connecting to all the PR departments and stuff like that, and it's just like, yeah, right now media is just so limited, and a lot of they're like, look, if you watch the even the big platforms, you see it's Zoom calls like for like post game press conferences and stuff like that. So I'm like, that experience, doing stuff like that and actually getting back into sporting event buildings. The pandemic killed us there, but it allowed us to build, the connections in the network that we needed to even get to that space. So again, it's there's goods and there's bads. I'm just grateful that we're still here, pushing through.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I could definitely relate to that. I was supposed to be covering the Orlando Magic. I was supposed to be doing these interviews. I was covering some Hornet games in North Carolina. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's a part of it, but it's kind of allowed us time that we wouldn't have to explore relationships, to explore
Mhm.
the content. So I think it's a blessing in disguise. I'm a glass half full type of person, so I always try to spin it in that way anyway.
Mhm.
I think that's incredible that you're a teacher and yet you're able to build something so special that you're building. My mom is a teacher in North Carolina,
Mm.
and that she always talked about as her students and just the situation that we're in. It's impacted everybody, right? So it's not even just the sports world that's been impacted. It's the education system. It's
Yeah.
everyone's kind of been under this whole umbrella of question. We don't know how to respond to it because it's never happened to us. But
Right.
I think we're starting to get through. Vaccinations are rolling out, and I think it's like a positive thing. Now, once sports were back, that was everything for me because
Uh,
I know that obviously a lot of people had more extreme situations, but for me, I'm like, man, that's all I do. Like I'm watching sports or I'm playing sports, I'm working out or I'm talking it. That's all I do. So when I didn't have that, I was like, oof, like I was
right.
reading books. I was like my world was on pause. So
Yeah.
now that we're getting the ball rolling here, I'm very happy to be back. I'm thankful for your time and that we all made it through it and became stronger from it. But
Mhm.
before we get into some NBA topics, let me ask you, as a teacher, do they go hand in hand? Do you learn some things through your other profession? They're like, oh, I could apply this to designated report or vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. I first of all, I'm a writer at heart. I love to write. I've always liked writing. But what's interesting about that is I never liked reading. I never cared to read, Max, but I would always want to write. So everyone's like, to be a good writer, you need to be able to read, or you need to be reading a lot. So with education, from like, summer PDs where we get prepared for professional development and going into the school year, they give us so much readings to do, right? About the same things every year, but nonetheless, we got to read them so that it's like pre-work. When we come together as a staff, we're trying to find ways to be more effective for kids, because there's always something to learn to better yourself as a teacher, as an educator, as a dean, as a principal, a coach, whatever it may be. So that has caused me to do a lot more reading, which has really enhanced just like my view on how things that might not even necessarily have to do with sports. Because yes, we are a sports company, but I take pride in writing and talking a lot about things that are just beyond sports, like social, issues, or, different things of that nature. So that has helped me a lot, just to like kind of like step outside of sports sometimes and do that. And in putting my lessons together, I told Pierce Brooks, he's a motivational speaker for TED Talks. I interviewed him a couple months back, and I've taken some of the stuff that I've done, like at Designated Report, to help me lesson plan, like tactics, like to create curriculums for kids and things like that. So I think it goes hand in hand, because anytime you're in the business of either being educated or educating, you're always going to find things that you can connect to make you better on the other side of the spectrum.
Right. That's incredible. Yeah, my mom is so funny. Mother's Day just passed, talking about mom. She's a writer. That's how I kind of fell in love with writing material or coming up with analogies. And now that I look back at it, so I'm finishing up college here, and I'm looking kind of at what my parents did. They separated. And so I kind of, when I was younger, I'd break them down on like kind of characteristics that I get from them. And so when the pandemic happened, I've had all this free time to kind of self-reflect and think. My mom's a writer and my dad's an actor. And so he's entertainer. He's very flamboyant. He's a people's person. He talks. And my mom writes. And I'm like, if you combine those two things together, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm like, it's talking. It's being a broadcaster where I have to write my material, but yet I have to present it in a way. I'm like, those are two different things I would have never have guessed that I got from them, but that's kind of created what I am. Right. But and I wouldn't have had that time if it wasn't for the pandemic. But that's incredible. So I want to ask you this. So I always see your work on Twitter and your opinions, and I always find myself agreeing with you. I'm like, So I was like, I've always been critical, not a hater. I'm not a hater. Like, I don't hate any of these players, but people call me a hater because I'm more critical of Russell Westbrook. I've been more critical of him. Just his playing style. I respect the hell out of him. I think he's an amazing athlete, amazing player, Hall of Famer. Right. I just never a big fan of the triple-double. Like, to me, it's cool. I like it. I acknowledge its greatness, but I don't find the value in it as other people do. Yeah. I want to give Kendrick Perkins, I know that's your guy too. I want to give Kendrick Perkins his flowers for giving him his flowers.
Right.
Giving Russell Westbrook his flowers. I'm like, let me look into this. These triple doubles have translated to wins for the Wizards now. So I can't be critical of it. Okay, I see the value in it now. What are you of Russell Westbrook and what they're able to do? Obviously, I think they're the 9th seed. They have an opportunity to squeeze in even further, but they're definitely in the play-in. What do you make of Russell Westbrook and the Wizards right now?
Oh, this is hard because Russell Westbrook is probably top 2 of my favorite people, like in the NBA, not player, but people. Like, I love everything he's about. Quick backstory before I get into that. This year, every year, when we go into the school year, we name our classrooms, our advisories. We take pride in naming our advisories after historical figures, right? Last year's past, it was historical figures from any avenue. This past year, they pushed us to do to allow kids to name the advisory. We would give them options, and they would name the advisory based on whether a celebrity or athlete or something like that. Most of us were looking into athletes because the kids really connect to athletes a lot, especially modern day athletes. And we gave them, Naomi Osaka. We gave them a variety. It was like 5 options, and the kids voted Russell Westbrook. And I was, So I was so proud because I love everything Russ was about, and the fact that those kids, whatever they know about Russ, whether it's off the court or just knowing what he does on the court, took enough pride to say, okay, we want our class to be named after Russell Westbrook. So that's how much I like the dude, like as
Yeah.
a person before he even steps on the court. Now, I like you was I was definitely still not sold that the triple doubles are a huge deal, right? Again, it's anytime you're making history, it's a big deal. But the bad thing about it is when you're doing it so frequent, it becomes kind of, I don't want to say watered down, but it looks like, well, if you could do it so easily every night, how incredible of a feat could that be? But again, that's me looking on a critical standpoint at, well, his team has never really gotten far in the playoffs with him doing all these triple doubles. His team has never, won a championship with him doing all these triple doubles. It's just like the numbers are incredible, but it's never translated into wins necessarily. But now, like you said, this year, the Wizards started out as like the worst team in basketball over the first month or two of the season. They were literally in dead last place in the entire NBA. And, Russ's run of triple doubles has directly impacted them coming out of the basement to being in a play-in situation now. So it would be, hypocritical of me to say, well, they didn't translate to wins. So what's the big deal to not saying now, you're right, you got it, Russ. Like your triple doubles now are impacting your team positively. And it means everything at this point. So again, I'm still like, not going to say, wow, I can't believe he's doing triple, because I expect it now at this point. I expect him to get 14, 10, and 12, in an occasional 20-point game or an occasional 20-assist game like he's done. I just don't know that for me. It's like I'm losing my mind over it, but I am appreciating his greatness and what those triple doubles are translating to for the Washington Wizards.
Right. And I think him and Chris Paul are two players that in a weird way, these situations have benefited them, because Chris Paul, you wanted him to be on a contender to win a championship, but him constantly being able to go to a different organization and turn them around, to me, is more. Russell Westbrook, now like having these triple double stats for someone like me, so for someone like you, they're translating to win. So like, okay, I see, that's what I wanted to see. So in a weird way, this situation in Washington helped them. Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, it did. It definitely did, because they were not performing well, and the triple doubles have turned into wins. Even if it's like they're beating teams they're supposed to be because of the talent that they have, right? They have two of the top 15, 20 players in basketball. They should be better, but because of where they were, like you said, to where they're headed, you can't help but to respect that.
Right. I want to stay in the East with you. What do you think? We went back and forth a little bit on this because I don't think people understood what I was saying with the Boston Celtics. So Jason Tatum, I think it was after his 50-point game or his 60-point game, I forget which one it was. He had an incredible night. And I just don't see it. I just don't think this is going to – it's not something you can count on night in and night out for this guy to just constantly drop 50 or 60. It's not a recipe for longevity and success in the postseason. That's not what you can just depend on. Right. I don't see – last year, I liked them a lot. They were like my dark horse. And this year, I just don't see the same value spread out with them. I just don't see multiple ways that they can win. I know what I'm getting with Jaylen Brown. I know what I'm getting with Jason Tatum. Two amazing, arguably the best young duo in the league. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Boston? And what do they need to do to fix? What is their issue? Is it an identity issue?
Oh, man, that I've been trying to figure out Boston all year, because you don't go from being a legit contender last year to fighting for a playing spot, this year. And again, it's how they've done it all year consistently. It's like Jaylen Brown has a 38-point game, and Tatum has a 50-point game, and a 60-point game. It's like you mentioned, you can't win like that, especially come playoff time. Teams are not going. That's not going to be something that you could sustain over a 7-game series. As far as like what's wrong, I don't know, but I think Kemba, is not. I mean, he's clearly not living up to what Boston thought they were getting. Now, whether that's, him being put in a situation to succeed, or him playing off-ball more, or whatever Brad Stevens feels like he needs to do with Kemba to get what he feels like he needs to get with Kemba, as opposed to what's best for the team, I can't pinpoint it. And everyone's pointing at Brad Stevens, and I want to point at Brad Stevens too, but this is the same Brad Stevens who's gotten that team, to overachieve. And Jason Tatum's rookie year, when Kyrie goes down, he gets them to the Eastern Conference Finals in a Game 7 against LeBron. to almost get to the finals. He's the one that got them in the Eastern Conference Finals last year against the Miami Heat, and got to a Game 7. Like, again, I don't know if Brad Stevens is the problem, but there has to be some kind of disconnect with why this team is underperforming. They have good players. Like, they have, one of the best energy players in defensive players in Marcus Smart. They have Tristan Thompson, who is notoriously known for, getting extra possessions and playing tough defense and championship caliber he brings with him. They have, I still don't understand why they traded Daniel Theis. I think that trade has completely backfired. I don't understand the move, but they were bad or they were average before they made that trade. So I'm not sure I can pinpoint it, but I'm still trying to figure it out, Max. What do you think is going on there?
I honestly think when you look back at their recent acquisitions and trades, like the business they've done, like Danny Ainge, I know he's very hesitant to pull the trigger. They've lost Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, and then they get the Kemba Walker, and look what they've really gotten in return. It's not, and so I feel like they're doing bad business in a way. And I don't mean to be just so like Debbie Downer because they have young talent, but I feel like in order to shake things up, he's going to have to take a risk, which is out of his character. And I don't know what the value you can really get with Kemba right now, but if I was Ainge, I would do something to shake it up. Obviously, keep your young nucleus and your young core, but I think he's going to have to get out of his character and out of his comfort zone. And I think they're going to have to try to do something with the roster. I just don't know if he'll do that.
With that said, question for you, as far as like them shaking it up and Ainge doing something outside of his character, and this is just looking back at this point, but when AD was available, would you have traded one of those two young wings for
Yes.
Anthony Davis? You would have?
Yeah. I'm an aggressive win now. And so that's how I am. I've covered the draft. I love the draft, but as much as I love the draft, you want to win now. And I'm not as a big believer in like investing capital into draft picks and loading up. I'm not a believer in that. If you look at the Knicks right now, change the culture. Like, okay, we got Julius Randle. Tibbs is a great coach for this young nucleus. All of a sudden, the culture changed. It wasn't. Now, granted, R.J. Barrett was a draft pick, but I think it's all about what you're able to do now. The Lakers were criticized for getting rid of Lonzo and Josh Hart and Brandon Ingram, and they won a championship. You get the best player, Anthony Davis, you win a championship.
Right.
So I'm Boston. I would have 100% done that. Now, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are great, but they're not Anthony Davis.
Oh, no.
I would have done it. And I think if they would have done it, obviously history would have been completely different, but I don't think we'd be having this conversation right now.
Right. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They probably win the championship last year, or I think they won it last year.
I forget what they had to do. It was just one of them in the trade package, right?
It was one of those two in some of those million draft picks that they were stashing for whatever reason.
I would have done it in a heartbeat. I would have been the easiest customer to do business with. I would have said yes right away.
I thought it was going to go that way too, honestly, for several reasons, because the Pelicans were just absolutely pissed off at the Lakers for the whole clutch connection and AD saying I want to go to LA, and two, Danny Ainge, you get a chance to steal the guy that wants to go to LA, next summer. Again, guys always say they're not going to sign, but you never know. I mean, Paul George re-signed in OKC. Kawhi walked off, but there's never been anybody as destined to get back to LA than Kawhi Leonard. That man walked away from a championship team. I've never seen that done before. I don't know if we ever see it done again. But Danny Ainge, I thought he was for sure going to trade against the Lakers, especially after the trade deadline passed. And I'm like, they're going to go into the summer where, teams are more available to make trades and acquire assets to make better offers. I was stunned. I wasn't stunned as far as like the Lakers got him. I was stunned that Boston really like just kind of backed out because they were afraid to give up one of those two guys or whatever.
And that blows my mind. If you look at all the recent aggressive trade moves, I'm not saying they all result in a dynasty, but Brooklyn, we're talking about them now. They're obviously prohibited favorites to make it out of the East, them and Philly. You look at the Lakers, Anthony Davis, LeBron, they win a championship. And you just, the Toronto Raptors took a risk. Even if it was a 1 year deal, I'm pretty sure they're happy they did it. They won a championship.
They won a chip.
I just think it's smart to just be aggressive and win now. And I feel like it's so much easier said than done, but I just always try to put myself in someone's shoes before I offer an opinion. And if my job is to win, like that's my job and my livelihood, you're going to do whatever it takes to win now because that's how you're getting paid. That's how you support your family. I'm going to
Hmm.
do whatever it takes to try to win now. And so I just always think it makes sense to try to be aggressive and get the star player. It's
Yeah.
like NBA, typically when you get the star player, you win the deal.
Yeah. A
And so
lot.
I always do that.
A lot of my friends who are huge fans of those young guys that you mentioned, especially Brandon Ingram, like I was always like I like Brandon, but people are like, yo, look at what Brandon's, and I'm like, I don't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're the Lakers. You can't wait 5 years for Bi to become an All Star when you can get a guy like Anthony Davis and chase a championship. You do it 100 out of 100 times. I would do that trade again and again and again. It doesn't really matter what any of those guys become. Lonzo could become Jason Kidd. Brandon Ingram could become Kevin Durant. We won a championship with the guy we traded them for. I'm okay with that. And we have a chance to win more. It's not like this guy's 35. He's 27, 28 in his prime still. So it's
Yeah.
like you have a chance to go win some more with this guy. You got to make that trade. No brainer.
No, talking about them, that's what I wanted to ask you about. I know you're a LeBron guy. You follow these games, and it feels really good to talk to other LeBron guys. People think I'm biased, but I don't. I'm not biased. I just think I defend him because people are so quick to tear him down because we're constantly comparing him to the all-time greats.
Mm-hmm.
People so quickly to find, oh, this is what's wrong. This is why he can't be MJ. This is why he can't be better. And I just try to appreciate what we're watching before you even compare it to anything.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers are in a very unique spot. I predicted them to win it last year. I won a bet against
You
Rob
did.
Parker.
I remember you told me, and I was not like I was like I
Oh,
thought the Clippers were gonna get it done, and you told me the Lakers would, and you were right.
and they were my early pick to win it this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm given new information, I don't mind changing my pick, but I'm sticking to it. I remember the narrative last year. People forget towards the end of the bubble. It's different. It wasn't injuries, but they just weren't looking right
Yeah.
and losing a lot. And then they started to find the rhythm towards the end of the regular season bubble. And then it's like, oh, hey, Portland can really upset them. And they
Yeah.
5 games. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Houston can really upset them, beat them in 5 games.
Yeah.
Lakers, this does concern me a little bit more. I think the roster is better, but their health is wealth and
Mm-hmm.
ability is the best ability. And obviously, the LeBron's year 18 freak injury with the ankle, he
Mm-hmm.
agitated it, playing it safe. He comes back, I think, next game. I just got a report with.
Tuesday or Wednesday, Sham
Yeah,
said.
Anthony is finally looking like he's gotten
Mhm.
his back. What are your thoughts on the Lakers right now? They're a 7 seed, so they would have a play-in. But I looked at their schedule, and I think every game they can win. The
Mhm.
Knicks, they play hard, but I think they have a real shot at, even if they're in the play-in tournament, I still am picking them to win the whole thing. Would you call me crazy?
No, because like you this year, I said I was not going to doubt my guys again, like I did last year. I mean, I think again last year, I was looking at the depth of the Clippers. I'm like, there's so like once you go past the Lakers' top two heavy guys, the Clippers have the better team. They're the deeper team. They have the more of the dogs, right? But again, the Clippers they came up short. And after seeing AD turn into this guy in the playoffs and played through the ankle injury he was hobbling, but he was like, nah, we're going to get this done. And, they done it. And I never question LeBron. It's more of AD. I've never seen AD on that stage. You see great players all the time, like a Paul George. But playoff, he's calling me right now. Playoff time, I'm sorry about that, Max.
No, you're
Playoff
good.
time is an entire different beast.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I picked them to repeat. And I was looking at their situation, their standings, and their record, and the playing game. I feel like that's a better situation than if the Lakers are a 6 seed. And I'll tell you why. If they end up the playoffs with a 6 seed, they're playing the Clippers in round one as currently constituted. Either the Clippers or Denver, which are no slouches, right? Denver lost Jamal Murray. We know that, but they've played excellent since Jamal's gone out with, Jokic stepping it up with Michael Porter Jr. turning into like this guy who we always thought that he was going to be in 3 or 4 years. He's like, nah, it's my time now. I have the touches. I have the freedom on offense. So I think the Lakers, if they, get to that 7th spot, I think they'll beat Golden State or whoever's in the 8th seed. And then they'll play either Utah or Phoenix in round one. I don't think either of those teams are beating the Lakers in round one or at all. Like I'm not afraid of Utah. Phoenix has had an excellent year as has Utah. A healthy LeBron with a healthy Anthony Davis, like the Anthony Davis that I watched last night and scream, I'm back. You can tell he has that chip on his shoulder again. Like, all right, y'all doubting us because we've been hurt, we've been out of the lineup, and LeBron. The reports are he's gonna either play Tuesday against the Knicks or Wednesday night versus Houston, but one of those games he will return. I'm not. And Dennis Schroeder, like people are forgetting, like Dennis Schroeder is the Lakers' third best player, and he is not only a playmaker but a shot creator for himself. So it's like once those two pieces come back again, if they're healthy, if they are healthy. I don't think any team is going to be able to stop the Lakers. But if they're not, LeBron and AD or somebody has to miss games, and it's going to really obviously impact them.
I always said in a weird way, it was like a really good thing. Injuries are never a good thing, but I'm like, okay, AD, who's kind of brittle, who usually misses time, got time. LeBron, year 18, was forced to have time. He was leading the league in minutes, and he was almost an MVP candidate. Hey, you need to just relax. And he relaxed. But do you think LeBron James will be the LeBron we know? Because we've never seen him in this situation because he never gets hurt. That's one of the great things about him. He is an Iron Man. But him re-aggravating his ankle, do you think that's going to be a reoccurring thing? Like you said, health is really the question. Do you think we're going to get a healthy LeBron come the play-in time?
No, I don't think we will. And he said it himself. He said he'll never be the same player, especially not this season. The fact that LeBron re-aggravated it and had to leave a game in like the third quarter of his second game back tells me everything I needed to know about that injury. It's serious, and it's a high ankle sprain. Those are those are the worst. Once the lower ones you could kind of like work through. The higher ones, that's coming up to that like Achilles area, so that's a little tender there. So no, I don't think LeBron is going to be 100%. I don't even think he's going to be 80%. But I think he's going to be determined. Regardless, I don't think LeBron's going to sit out come playoff time. I think that's why he sat out the last couple of weeks to kind of like give himself, some space, some leeway to get back to at least 75 or 80%. I don't think he'll be healthy. I don't think AD is fully healthy either. I hold my breath every time because AD will go down and he'll get up with a little limp, and I'm just like, oh my God, what is it now? Like, come on, AD, bro, we can't lose you again. We cannot lose you again. So I don't think, LeBron will be 100%, but I think, LeBron doesn't need to be 100% to still affect the game in so many ways that he can.
I think we all do the same thing. I think Anthony Davis falls more than any player I know.
Oh, my God.
More than any player. I remember watching it last year in the bubble, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Every single time it was a layup, it was a jump shot, it was a dribble move, it was defense. It was like a shot, he trips on someone. I'm like, AD, I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, but he falls more than any player I know.
Yeah, he does. I agree. It's so nerve-wracking. I'm just like, bro, we can't. You are our guy. You can't get hurt. Everything does not work if AD's not available. You have to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all going to be interesting. Now, Pierre and I had this conversation. One of the last things I want to ask you, I appreciate your time, is the play-in tournament. And now Pierre and I had this conversation, and we were saying we like the play-in tournament, but why in the world is the 7th seed even included? Because if I'm the 7th seed, I'm upset. We did everything in our power to make the playoffs. I think it should be the 9 and 10 seed play. The winner plays the 8th seed. What do you think about the play-in tournament? Do you like it? Do you like the format? Or do you kind of agree with what we're saying?
I hate the format. I wish they kept what they had last year with the 8th seed fighting for their playoff lives as opposed to a 7th seed. Like, you had a pretty good year, especially in a tough conference, a tough league with so many good teams now. You had a pretty good year. You did everything to stay out of that 8th spot. You can't put a 7 because it's one game, Max. It's 1 or 2 because the 7th seed, even if they lose, they get a shot to get that 8th seed. But if you catch the wrong team at the wrong time, your season's over. You can win 40-plus games and literally be sitting at home come first round because a team got hot like the Warriors. Imagine you run into the Warriors at the wrong time with Steph going freaking bananas. Your season's over. I hate that. I get they're trying to make it more competitive and they're trying to keep everybody interested all the way up to the last day of the regular season. But I feel like they're messing with history too much. You can't just keep throwing what next year they're going to add the 6th seed. They're going to do they're going to say, well, in lottery teams, if you could beat, the number 1 seed, then you're going to overtake. Come on. I feel like they're doing too much. The 8th seed and the 9th and the 10th would have been fine. The 7th seed, you got to come on. Those guys, they earned their playoff spot. They're not even the last seed in the playoffs. You got to stop playing with that.
And I think that's what people are nervous about, like Laker fans are nervous about. It's like, okay, we know the Lakers are the better team than any team in the play-in, but it's one game. So you take a guy like Steph Curry, who's just going bananas every single game he plays. He can drop 60 on the Lakers and beat them, but the Lakers are definitely a better team.
Right. And that's not, that's why I don't like it. And I feel like that's why LeBron, has voiced his opinion about it. I hate the timing of it because it's like, oh, come on, LeBron, you knew this all year. You didn't you could have said, but you didn't foresee you guys getting all these injuries and end up sliding all the way down to 7. But it's trash. I don't think the NBA should have a 7 seed fighting for their playoff lives the last day of the regular season. I wish next year, which they probably won't because this keeps people more interested, right? Yeah. I wish they would go back to the 8th, 9th, and 10th to compete for the last playoff spot.
If the Lakers have a play-in and they lose, they may change the format because I think that you'd get a lot of angry people. The ratings, the LeBron not in the playoffs with AD and Drummond and the roster that they have, I think that would really rustle a lot of feathers. Sean Alcide from designatedreport.com. I appreciate your time. Where can people find you? The website, your social media accounts, all the above.
You can find me on Twitter at Sean_Lyric. Be very nice to me because people are very mean to me on Twitter because of my opinionated self. My Instagram is King Alcide. The company's Instagram is Designated Report. On Instagram and on Twitter, it's Designated RPT. And on our website is designatedreport.com. And that's pretty much where you can find us. You can find everything you need there. I do want to ask you one thing before we go, Max.
Yes, sir.
I've been very opinionated, right, about Floyd Mayweather's shenanigans with the Paul brothers. And we talked about this on Twitter where you said he is about the money. He is Money Mayweather, and that man's going to do whatever it takes to get some money. I disagree with this tactic, even though I'll never count anybody's pockets. I feel like, doing it with who he's doing it is my issue. Not so much that he's fighting an exhibition. It's you're fighting YouTube stars. You don't seem to have a problem with it. Is there more to why you don't have a problem with it? Do you think it's not going to at all impact his, not legacy in the ring, but like the outlook of Floyd Mayweather as a boxer?
I think it's just because I didn't expect anything more. Like he had a boxing bout because I'm big on the MMA. And he had a boxing match, an exhibition match with a famous kickboxer in Japan. And the kickboxer couldn't kick. So it's like, all right, so this guy is not a boxer. He's a kickboxer, but you're not allowing him to kick. So it's like, what is this? And it's like, okay, easy money for Floyd. He knocked him out right away. So yeah. I know what his brand is. I think Ali is my favorite athlete of all time. So I'll always put Ali in the GOAT conversation. But as far as just greatest pure boxer of all time, greatest defensive fighter of all time, it's Floyd. So said, why would he even give these people time of day? Like, I 100% get it. It's like you're regarded so highly in the boxing community, and you're letting this YouTuber grab your hat and run away with it. And it's like, what are you doing? And it's so from that perspective, I did a podcast on it. I'm like, I 100% get it. Like, this is the GOAT messing around with the YouTuber. And it's like, why are you even giving them that opportunity to disrespect you? Right. And so, and to see him that upset, someone that offers you no threat, for someone who has fought so many all-time greats and never really lost his cool and composure that way, it just felt staged. It felt scripted. It felt corny. It was because I don't know, but Floyd, you're really going to lose that. You're cool when you've never lost your cool like that before. And a YouTuber is going to get you that way. Yeah. I think it is us talking about it because he knows this isn't really compelling. We all know what's going to happen. And so how can we do it to make it really controversial where everyone wants to see me knock him out? And that's what you'd have to do, something like that. So I get 100% where you're coming from. I do think it's beneath him. I just know Floyd Money Mayweather wants the check. And it's going to produce a check because unfortunately, no matter how aggravating those Paul brothers may be, they have a huge following.
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah.
And I covered a UFC event in Jacksonville, and literally while a fight was going on, the fans were more worried about Jake Paul in the crowd, and they were just screaming F Jake Paul. And so it's like throughout the whole night, it wasn't just one chant. It was throughout the whole event. They were just screaming F Jake Paul randomly. And so he's done this. He's been a genius with his marketing where people want to see him lose or win. It's kind of like the Conor McGregor thing. Mm-hmm. But at least Conor, when he boxed Floyd, he had the respect because he was a UFC champion. And so even though he's not a boxer, he's a UFC fighter.
Right.
This is YouTuber. Even though he has fundamental skills, he's
Yeah.
a YouTuber. He's not a professional boxer. And
Right.
so I get it. But let me ask you an honest question before I let you go. Are you going to watch it?
Of course. Absolutely. Because I
Yeah.
want to see Jake Paul get knocked out. I want to see Floyd knock him out. I couldn't believe the last guy, Ben Askren, wasn't able to get it done, even though he's way past his fighting years. But I want to see him get knocked out. But if anything else, like if Floyd does not knock him out, it's a bad look. I don't care if he wins. You have to knock this dude out. You are arguably the greatest boxer of all time. You need to put him on the campus. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if Floyd doesn't, oh my
It's a
God.
lose-lose. It really is a lose-lose. It's like
Yeah,
if he lands a punch on you, it's the end of the world. And if you knock him out, you're supposed to.
duh, right? That's what you're supposed to do, Floyd. Why you want props for
Now,
beating
Logan is a big individual. Logan's the bigger one,
He's
and he
bigger.
actually has a wrestling background. So
Mhm.
I've seen his boxing fight with KSI. He does not have boxing skills, but he fought Paulo Costa, who's a UFC middleweight in training, and he actually held his own. He ended up getting knocked out by the UFC fighter, but he held his own. Like he legitimately has a wrestling background.
Right,
Jake is the one that knocked out Ben Askren and Nate Robinson. He has a fundamental boxing background, and he's
right.
more of a boxer
Got
than the older brother. But Logan's big. Like they're not even close to the same size when you saw them standing next to each other.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. I'll be tuned in. But when I saw that, I'm like, I get it 100%. I feel the same way. I just know it's for money. So, Sean, I appreciate your time. Thank you for everything. Definitely would look forward to having you on soon. And anytime, you're more than welcome to come on.